How is everyone tonight? On behalf of Mayor Catherine Pugh, thank you so much for coming out tonight to the 8th of 9 meet and greets with Acting Police Commissioner Michael Harrison. My name is Shantae Guy, and I will be your facilitator tonight. Tonight's an opportunity for us all to get to know the new Acting Police Commissioner better and for him to hear your hopes and concerns as it relates to policing our community. For those of you who have signed up to speak tonight, listen for your names. I will call 5 names at a time so that folks can come up to the microphone here and be ready to share their thoughts with us and the Acting Police Commissioner. When you come up to the microphone, please remind us of your name and tell us what neighborhood you live in. Whether it's Waverly, Hamden, Govins, or somewhere else, we want to know where you come from. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. When your 2 minutes are up, you will hear a timer sound, and I'm sure that everyone agrees that the police commissioner should hear from as many voices as possible. As such, I'm going to be working really hard to make sure that voices that haven't been heard at previous forums have the opportunity to share their hopes and concerns with the police commissioner. It is my full intention to make sure that everyone who signed up to speak tonight is called to the microphone. If you have a question, but would prefer not to ask it at the microphone, feel free to write your question down, raise your hand, and a city staff member will bring that question to the front. Please join me in thanking Principal Williams for welcoming us to her building today. In addition to the police commissioner, we're also joined tonight by Major Gibson, Captain Hess, Neighborhood Coordination Sergeant Street, and Officers Williams and Henry of the Northern District. Thank you so much for being here. I'd also like to acknowledge the Honorable James Bradar, the federal judge appointed to oversee the consent decree for Baltimore City. City Council President Jack Young, City Council Vice President Sharon Green Middleton, Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark, Councilman Robert Stokes, and Councilman Leon Pinkett. I don't think that any of the other council members snuck in at this point. With the administrative things out of the way, please join me in welcoming Mayor Catherine Pugh to the podium.
Allow me to also acknowledge former Councilwoman Ricky Spector. You all came here to hear from our commissioner, but I just wanted to share a few things. You know, I had a panel of about 5 police commissioners across the country, and here's the advice that I was given. To the extent that you can find someone who understands our consent decree, lean in that direction. To the extent that you can find someone who understands what it means to do a complete makeover of a police department, look in that direction. To the extent that you can find someone who understands community engagement, look in that direction. And to the extent that you find someone who understands what it means for a community to develop trust in their police department, look in that direction. I can tell you that Michael Harrison, the person that I reached down and asked if he would come, and as I said to him, this is not a job interview, this is a job offer. And he can share with you his thoughts after that conversation. But I also want you to know that his mentor mayor was my mentor mayor, so additional pressure was applied. There are several things that are important as we look at reforming this police department. We know that technology needs to be improved. And many of you may or may not know that in 1997 they started putting computers in police cars in every single jurisdiction except for Baltimore. And it wasn't until I became mayor that I went to the governor and said, we need computers in our police cars. And so I was able to get that money, and now our police cars are outfitted. But the technology platform that is needed to reform this police department, to create more accountability, is what we're at the state asking for, and we've put monies in our budget to make sure that that happens. We also know that the facilities in which we're currently training leave a lot to be desired. But let me just tell you, we have two great offers, because we know that we need to provide the kind of training that will allow professionalism, constitutional training, and the kind of training that we believe will help our officers to do their jobs even better. So we will make that decision very shortly. We also know that we need to build more police officers from our community. And to that end, I'd like to take a moment to thank Dan Himowitz and our Bloomberg Innovation team that went to the state and got our cadet program certified. So now our young people, that deserves a round of applause, because now our young people can come out of high school, spend 2 years learning about policing, staying on the right track, and then at $35,000, and then go into our police academy and come out making close to $52,000, competitive with our surrounding jurisdiction. Thank you. And this commissioner will tell you that one of the things he asked me before he even would consider this job is, will you provide me with the resources necessary to turn this police department around? And I'll say this again this evening, Commissioner, I am totally committed to providing you with the resources, the technology, the people you need in terms of recruiting, so that you can do what is necessary to bring Baltimore to where it needs to be, because we intend on being the best police department in the nation. And finally, let me say this. There are groups, there are individuals here who we meet every morning at 8 a.m. We call ourselves the Violence Reduction Initiative. 8 a.m. And I'll never forget the looks on their faces the first week. It's like, is she serious? But it includes not just our commanders, but those departments, and I said to the department heads, don't send me people unless they have the authority to act. Everything from housing, as it relates to boarding up houses in our communities, to transportation, improving lighting in our communities, to public works. You know, I was telling someone the other day, I never understood why so many mattresses were in the alleys. I said, is everybody just throwing out their mattresses at the same time? But what I learned is that that is how some criminals actually keep police officers from getting through the alleys. And so we're cleaning up, we're boarding up, we're brightening up, and we're dealing with the health issues in our communities. But it's all of them together every single day. And we take one day out of the week and we walk through crime-ridden neighborhoods. And I'll never forget a media person picking up a conversation that I had, and I think they thought it was a got you moment, but I meant every word that I said, because we got to clean the city up. But I tell folks, trash doesn't get on the ground by itself. Hands drop trash on the ground. And we have a responsibility to make sure that our neighbors are helping keep our communities clean, but our city is doing everything that it can. But again, you all came to hear from our police commissioner, and here's the one thing he said to me. He prayed on our first walk through the community that it wouldn't snow. Well, it didn't snow that first night, but he called me up the other day and he said, Madam Mayor, you didn't tell me about all of this. Because after all, he's from New Orleans, and we are so proud to have you applying to be, well, I should say, in the position to be our police commissioner, a man that I believe is committed to bring about the change that this city needs to see. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Next, we'll hear from Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark of the 14th District.
Thank you, Shantae. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening. It's great to be here, and I just want to tell you, Commissioner, that yes, we have snow, but the next day it's always 55 degrees. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to especially thank Mr. Harrison, our active and interim and we hope permanent commissioner, and his lovely wife, Cece. I'd like to tell you that they live in a house, not an apartment downtown. They live in a house in the 14th Councilmatic District in Northern District Police. So they're safe and beloved already. Madam Mayor, you did a great job bringing this lovely family to Baltimore to work with us and turn things around, and we're here to support the efforts 100%. I just want to salute the Northern District. I live there, and proud to. I've lived there since 1967. Never had a problem except one break-in, and that was long before you were born, Major. And they didn't get much. But Northern District has a reputation for getting the people that commit the crimes. They never quit. It's also in this generation a place of emailing back and forth. I mean, you can't email in about something that you don't get an answer back. And now we got Sergeant Street going on too, and her crew. And she's doing so much constituent work, she's putting me out of business, actually. And I couldn't be happier about it. So this is a great district, a great crowd of people. Welcome to Baltimore. Welcome to the 14th District. And I hope you'll both be very, very happy for a long, long time here. Thank you.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask C.C. Harrison to please stand up. This is the wife of our commissioner-to-be who gave up a great career just to be here with us. Thank you for taking this journey.
Thank you both. Before I turn it over to the acting police commissioner, I'd like to acknowledge Councilman Bill Henry of the 4th District. Now I'll turn it over to acting police commissioner Harrison.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. This is very important that I hear from you, and I'll be able to answer any questions that you will be able to ask me, but this is very important. People say, well, what's your plan? The first part of a plan is for me to hear from you so that I can know what the concerns are, so that I can make sure that your concerns are my concerns and that your concerns are our concerns. And so thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you for making that phone call and giving me so much to think about and pray about in such short time. I appreciate it. And she was absolutely right. And when we got into the phone call, she did ask me about the job. I wanted to know about what you needed and what it was going to take to make you successful, to turn the department around and become a great police department, 21st century world-class police department, which requires the best training, the best technology, the best leadership, all working together, and she made that commitment to me. And if I didn't think it was serious, I wouldn't be here, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. Mr. Council President, thank you for all your support. To all of our council members who've been with us every night last week and this week, thank you all so much. I've had an opportunity to meet with every single council member. I think I have 1 or 2 meetings tomorrow, but I've spent about an hour with each council member. And it's been wonderful. They all are giving me all of their thoughts, all of their concerns, representing you very, very well. So thank you for all of that. And to the team that puts this together, thank you all. You're doing a phenomenal job. Our past council member, thank you for always sharing your thoughts with me. And to this team, I met with the commander, assistant commander, and the officers today at roll call, had a chance to address them to talk about how I feel about now being the leader and their important role in the profession and accepting this calling, but really honoring the profession. And I was very happy to spend some time with you and then to share privately with your commander and assistant commander. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your sacrifice, and thank you for the service to this community and to the profession. So I'm really honored also that the judge who oversees our consent decree, Judge Before, I thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. It means a lot to me because it shows me that you're going to be supporting not just me, but this entire department, this entire effort. And I saw our lead consent decree monitor, Ken Thompson. Thank you so much. This is very important, and thank you for being with us. And I appreciate that. This is important to all of us. Last but not least, to my wife, thank you, who I met when she was 13. And I was 15, Your Honor. It was not a crime. We weren't doing anything. We were just kids playing on the sidewalk. We started dated through high school, and got married young. I was 22, she was 20. But we've been knowing each other from kids, and tomorrow will make 27 years being married. And so if you want to know, is this guy committed, I will spend my anniversary night tomorrow with you. And she will make me pay for it. But thank you for being on this journey. She actually gave up a great career. She has an MBA, did a lot of work, and was very productive in her career and in the New Orleans professional scene, and gave that up because she also saw the importance of this assignment, this God-given calling, to come take lessons learned from one place and apply them in another place. And so thank you for being on that journey. And so we're here. We left our house. We kicked the kids out. We drove up here. We got our driver's license today. They cut mine in half, so I can't go back. I can't go back. And so we're here. And so I started this journey in law enforcement 21 years old. I actually joined the National Guard out of high school. So I have 8 years National Guard military experience. But I joined the police department at 21. Took on the most challenging of all assignments. Wanted to go to the most challenged part of town. I thought that would cultivate and groom me faster than everybody else, and it did. Find myself in the 90s in the middle of the crime and crack epidemic, which we know what happened in America then. That caused a corruption epidemic in American policing. So the 90s were really challenged. Around that third year, I'm working in narcotics. I'm assigned to DEA for about a year, and I'm assigned to FBI for about a year, and we're working on big drug cases. But every time I'm working undercover on a drug case, I found myself with corrupt police officers interfering in my work. So if they had such disregard for my safety and the work I'm doing, I didn't have any regard for their careers, and so I did what it took to help get them out of the department. Right. That got the attention of the chief, who in 1998 promoted me to sergeant. Said, I need you to take this skill set to internal affairs and help me rid the New Orleans Police Department of other bad apples. For 9 years, that's exactly what I did as a sergeant and then as a lieutenant for 4 years. I did that for 9 years, working to make sure that the department changed its reputation and worked hard to get rid of people who did not deserve not just to be in the department, but to wear the badge at all. And so I did that work, which got the attention of the then chief, who promoted me to commander, put me back over narcotics, gangs, and intelligence and vice for a year to go catch other drug dealers. But then after that year, he put me in a district, the biggest district in the city, the heaviest populated, the biggest distance traveled, the biggest area of middle-class homeowners, but the biggest area of renters, and then the biggest housing subsidized renters as well. And so it had the most challenges, and for 2 of the 3 years, I was able to reduce crime in just about all the violent crime categories and most of the property crime categories, which got the attention of the mayor. And after 3 years of doing that in 2014, Mayor Mitch Landrieu tapped me on the shoulder and asked me to be the chief of police and promoted me over all of the assistant chiefs. Strange dynamic, because the people who were my bosses were now my subordinates. I understand how to do that. Now, for 4 years, I'm working with Ms. Landrieu as the chief, very, very bright, forward-leaning, very productive in a multidisciplinary approach to dealing with crime. It's not just being the police and enforcement, but we were in a consent decree as well. I come in as the chief in year 2. The previous chief was resistant and in denial about how bad we were. Well, we were pretty bad. We weren't as bad as they said we were, but we weren't as nearly good as we thought we were. So I came in year 2, working with the mayor, the murder capital of the world. The Department of Justice in 2012, in their findings of their investigation, called us the most troubled department in America. 18 core areas, 492 paragraphs, a 100% makeover of a police department. It's the equivalent of firing everybody and hiring new people. because we really had to change every single thing about a department in the midst of a city that had violent crime, actually leading the country and the world in violent crime, leading the country in incarceration. So a bunch of policies were bad that had to really be overhauled. So working with that mayor in this multidisciplinary approach, looking at poverty, crime, housing, education or the lack thereof, skills or the lack thereof, jobs or the lack thereof, mental health, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, conflict resolution, parenting skills, all of that working together at the same time, causing people to make decisions to commit crime, then working on a department that needed a holistic 100% makeover, and then a justice system that was letting people out because all their policies were bad as well. I became the chief and we worked, and for 4 years, over time, brought all of those categories down. And in the last year, my 4th year as being chief, we were able to bring all the violent crime categories down, and we had the lowest murder rate last year since 1971. So New Orleans had fewer murders last year than we've had since 1971. It wasn't me alone, but it was working as a team, leading a department that changed the way it thought and performed, working with the mayor in a multidisciplinary approach, very much like the one we have here with the Violence Reduction Initiative. And so that's what we're doing now, and I'm super proud to be able to accept this opportunity, which is a challenge, but a wonderful opportunity to now lead the men and women of the Baltimore Police Department. I was very fortunate to put myself through school while working, earning both a bachelor's and a master's degree in criminal justice, and attended many of the nation's best leadership and professional development courses all across the country, and taught by the brightest minds, which I hope to be able to invest and cultivate you, so that you can then grow and be developed to take leadership positions here in Baltimore and anywhere else in the country. And so I'm extremely happy, I'm extremely proud to be a resident of Baltimore. I'm extremely proud to be the leader of this department. I'm going to sit down. That's a little bit about me, and I really want to hear from you. But tonight is extremely important. I appreciate everybody's time. I believe that when we do this, and I'll say this again, when we do this right, and it's going to be done right, when we do it, my prediction, not a prophecy, but a prediction, will be that if you follow my lead and we do this carefully, that there will be a mayor from other cities who will come here and ask some of you to be chiefs of their cities. That is my goal. With that, I want to take some questions from you.
Thank you, Acting Police Commissioner Harrison. Before we call the first 5 names to the microphones, we do have a few questions that were submitted by audience members. The first question is, would you welcome the help of the state until the hiring of Baltimore Police Department numbers go up?
The answer is yes, and I believe we already do. And I think the question means the state as in state police, whoever, or other state police agencies or other agencies. I believe that's what they're referring to. We already do. Here's what I know, and here's what I want everybody to really understand. This department is in a federal consent decree, which is a mandate and an agreement between the city of Baltimore and the United States that we would make reform in a police department. Though we have help from other agencies, whether they're state partners, federal partners, or other local partners, our standards are being raised to be the national best standards in America, period. There may be other people whose standards may not be as high as ours and whose policies may not be as robust as our new policies are and will be. And so I will have to coordinate that and work with both our monitors and the judge to make sure that people who are working within the city of Baltimore are abiding by the highest standards. First of all, have the legal authority to do so, but abiding by the highest standards. But the answer to the question is yes. We have partnerships with federal agencies, we have partnerships with the state police, we have partnerships with other local and federal agencies. And we are working on a very robust recruiting campaign to bring those numbers up, but to attract people actually from the city of Baltimore, which we will unveil in short time.
Thank you. So I'll ask one more question and then we'll invite folks up and then we'll cycle back through audience questions. What is the plan of action and how can someone help?
So the plan of action right now really is for me to hear from you. The way you begin helping is to come to these meetings and share your concerns with me. Partner with my major and captain and the officers in the North District or in the district where you may live, so that in real time you have contact and open lines of communication with them. With all the things that are actually going on that work well and that could work better, we want to make sure you're connected with them so that they understand your concerns, because he actually has the autonomy and the authority to kind of create deployment strategies within this district that work for the people in this district. To the extent that you can help with us, we want to be able to have robust programs that allow you to give input, that we would give you feedback. But right now, I want to hear from you. I want to make sure that if we were to treat this like a medical situation, that I am not diagnosing and treating something, for example, for your brain when you actually need something for your heart. I need to hear the concerns from you to know what it is we have, who we have, what works, what doesn't work, what we need, and how to get what we need, who we need, and how to get who we need. So our first part of the plan is to hear from you. There'll be a robust, comprehensive plan and strategy to lay out that I'll present to the mayor that we'll make very public. But the first order of business is to hear from you.
Thank you, sir. The first 5 names. So let me just circle back for folks that came in after we started. We're now going to hear from you all. When I call your name, please form a line at the microphone. When it's your turn to speak, share your hopes, your concerns, questions, issues with the acting police commissioner. Remember to reintroduce yourself and tell him what neighborhood you live in. We're streaming this live for folks in Baltimore who are unable to make it tonight, so please speak directly into the microphone. We have a lot of folks signed up for questions tonight, so after you shared your comment or question, please step to the left of the microphone after your 2 minutes are up so the commissioner can answer your question and also allow for the next person to step up to get ready to speak. Our first 5 names are Bill Miller, Warren Hill, Claire Landers, Ava Pipitone, Lisa O'Neilly. When you're ready, sir.
Sure. Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to the Northern District.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Bill Miller, and I'm the former president of the Northern Police District Community Council. And I think in going around the city already, you know that people think of Baltimore as a city of neighborhoods.
Yes.
So my question to you is, what do you see as the role of neighborhoods in fighting crime and creating safer places so that not all the burdens are on you?
Very good. Thank you for that.
And are there any examples from New Orleans that you might share with us of working with the neighborhoods?
Absolutely. I think much of what can be done is being done, and the neighborhoods are really not that far off. I've been very impressed by the level of engagement from neighborhood associations and individuals in every neighborhood here in Baltimore that are really connected to the districts, that are really connected to each other, and that are really connected to programs, whether profit or nonprofit. And I think what you can do, for example, is make sure that there's high level of engagement and communication, direct lines of communication with you and the members of the district, so that your concerns are addressed real time and answers to questions you get real time. But then the ability to communicate with each other, for example, through a program called Next Door, which in many parts of Baltimore, it's already here. It's a Facebook, if you will, for neighborhoods. The police department has it, but neighborhoods can also have it. And it's an open line of communication through social media where people within a neighborhood can communicate with one another. And that communication doesn't always have to go to the police, but it can make everybody aware of what's being seen in a neighborhood. And then we're tracking through it as well. That's one thing. That's something that worked very well in New Orleans. It's very much like Facebook, but it's really refined and defined to a specific community or specific neighborhood, and then we can spec it out for each different neighborhood to talk to each other within a neighborhood and for neighborhoods to talk to one another. But the level of engagement has been very, very well. I think we need to make our community, the CRC is the Community Relations Council, the Community Relations Council more robust, where citizens are engaged at every district and have input to the commander on your thoughts of what's needed and how they can deploy that, because that's what community policing is about. An agreement on what's needed and how to deploy those sources that satisfy both citizen concerns and make us more efficient and more effective, but it's about relationship building. But I have been very impressed, extremely impressed on the level of engagement I've seen with neighborhood groups, associations, and individuals that are connected and are not just reliant on just police enforcement to do it. There are so many nonprofits and organizations that are actually on the ground working. Now, a concerted effort to create a good communication strategy, a good effort to make sure everybody is always well informed, and feedback. I think we can do a much better job on giving you feedback on what we're doing. Thank you. Great question.
My name is Warren Hill. I'm a chaplain for the Police Department in Baltimore City
evening.
Central District.
Yes.
Again, I'd like to welcome you to Baltimore City, you and your madam.
Thank you.
Your wife, madam. My question and one concern is the traditional system and also repeat offenders. The biggest problems that we have is in the police department is persons that you arrest at 12 o'clock and then they're back on the street at 12:30. And then that comes to a point that they're continuously doing things because they have not served any time for the first thing that they've done. I just need to know your input with that, and I will take my seat.
Thank you. Great question. Don't go anywhere, please. Stay right. That's a concern here, but that's a concern in every city in America. All the chiefs are facing that very same thing. It's going to be not just my job, but all of our job together with all of our local and state legislators to make sure that we have strong consequences, but they're fair and just. But they have to be strong to deter people from making bad decisions. Now, I have to make sure that at a very minimum, we do a good job in building good quality criminal cases so that when that happens, if somebody is released and back out, it's not on the part of the department who did something wrong that caused that. But we all have to get together and decide as a community how to get our legislators to strengthen our laws, but keep them fair and just, so that repeat offenders and people who are violent offenders and people who are causing havoc in the community are actually being reformed, rehabilitated, if they're being let out, and not being let out unrehabilitated and unreformed, and that there are opportunities on the front end with this, what you heard me call the multidisciplinary approach, to give people opportunities to choose well and to choose against a life of crime. And so all of that has to work together. And so while, yes, we need strong consequences, we also have to do a better job offering a way away from a life of crime and pathways to better choices, while working on a police department that provides high-level, good quality investigations that, number one, don't get overturned and people are not released because of simple mistakes that we might make. And so that's the commitment that we have in our reform to making us better as well.
I'll leave this with you. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and I believe in my spirit you are that good man.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name's Claire Landers. I live in Pikesville. I moved here 20 years ago, and I love Baltimore, and I hope that you and your wife come to love it as much as I do.
We already loving it.
So, Maryland courts have ruled that state privacy laws for public employees means that no one can review the disciplinary misconduct records of a Baltimore police officer, because they're considered private personnel records. But these employee personnel files are exactly where you or an internal investigator, a prosecutor, the press, or a Baltimore citizen making a complaint would have to look to be able to connect the dots to show that a particular officer has a long pattern of many, many violations. Abusive officers like the GTTF officers knew this and were able to stay under the radar for many years because of that particular rule. This privacy rule that keeps police discipline records secret places you at a big disadvantage in identifying and holding police officers accountable. So my question is two-part. Are you aware of this privacy rule, and are you concerned that you will have all the tools that you need as commissioner to hold accountable officers currently on your force? And will you urge the mayor and Baltimore State delegation and the leaders of the General Assembly in Annapolis to finally muster the political will to pass a law to change this special exempt privacy around police misconduct? Great points.
Great points. That is a big challenge for me. To answer the first part of the question, I am aware, but just became aware about the Maryland law about personnel records being public or being private. That's going to be a big challenge. But working with this community, when I say it is going to take all of us to help with that, it really will take all of us to help with that. And if nothing changes, then nothing changes. So I'm certainly interested in that. And I believe that this time, I believe the support is there to make sure that at a minimum, I can know, and the appropriate people who need to know to effect the right decisions will know. How we get to the state legislature to change that is going to be a challenge. I'm up for that challenge. But what I can tell you is I know how to go about knowing and finding out what I don't know about the individuals that we don't know about. Because while they may not be allowed for the public to know, I'm the commissioner, I can know. And there's a way for me to know. And yes, I'm up for the challenge. And yes, I do support a mechanism that would allow us to know and to be more transparent. Transparency is going to be the key for us to really reform. It's really going to be the key. Accountability and transparency. You're going to hear me say that over and over tonight. It's a challenge, but we're up for that challenge.
I just want to point out one thing when you said we all have to work together, particularly a couple of the officers involved in the GTTF squad. There were books that wrote about what they were doing. There were articles in a newspaper about them. And when it was brought to their supervisors, it was shrugged off. So you will hear about folks, and I really do hope that when you do hear it, you believe the community that tells you what they are experiencing. Thank you.
Ms.
I
Landers.
do. You make a great point. You make a great point. One more thing before we go to the next person. We have to build a machine that that tells us things that we don't know. That machine, I believe, is not yet built. We have to change an entire culture of an organization so that when things happen, the machine tells us, or people, the machine can be people, that people tell us. When we are told, I need to know, because the machine will tell me what was done about it when a person was made aware of it. Then I need to know when a person didn't do the right thing, what did their supervisor do, and what happened to the person who didn't do anything. So I really want to know who did what when you found out about it, who knew about it, when you didn't do anything about it, what was done to that person. So an officer problem to you is a supervisor problem to me. A supervisor problem to you is a command problem to me. A commander problem to you is a chief problem to me. And so I'm here to build a machine that gives us responsibility but accountability at every level, and the mechanisms to hold people accountable at every level. Yes.
When you're ready, Ava.
Yeah, my name is Ava Pipitone, and I'm here today wearing the hat of the Baltimore Transgender Alliance, where I'm a leadership consultant. And I think that theme of accountability is one that I can pick up here. So with the consent decree, we have new policies for interacting with the transgender community. And I want to ask about accountability around officers that might be slow with the upkeep on that, slow with, learning what is right. And I don't want the answer to be, we're just going to train them. I'm asking you, what are we going to do with officers that still aren't getting it, that are still breaking the law in their interactions with my community? That's the first question. The second question is, we've seen in previous cities really solid numbers around alternative dispatch and diversion programs, and we have a few early seeds of that here in Baltimore City. I want to know, how are you going to support those programs here, while also decreasing resources for the escalatory operations like sting operations around prostitution in the transgender community?
Those are good questions. Let me answer the second one first, and I'll ask you to remind me about what the first one, in case I forget.
Accountability was the first one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I don't want you said decrease funding or something.
Decrease resources.
Decrease resources. So same thing. Mm-hmm. All right. So it's about utilizing our resources more effectively, more efficiently to accomplish the goal that makes people safe and makes people feel safe, but makes us a professional, high-performing department. So the language about decreasing or increasing something is not really the issue. It's about doing a better job and doing a great job. I think that's what it's about. So I don't want to get caught saying I agree to decrease something. That being said, your question is tied to the previous answer. It's about me building mechanisms and systems of accountability that teach us when things happen, because I believe now we don't always know. And even when there are human failures, there has to be other ways we learn things and then able to take action and hold people accountable who don't take the appropriate action at every level. And so while the answer is yes, we will train, the systems of accountability will have consequences for those who don't comply with the training. And people who don't have the aptitude to really understand and learn it, we have to train them up or figure out how to make sure we train properly. First, we need to make sure everybody understands the training, because people may be trained but not understand it. So we have to do a better job at that. But it's really about the systems of accountability that hold people accountable for lack of performance, lack of supervision, and lack of management.
And what does the word discipline mean in that space?
Well, consequences and discipline are the same thing, but consequences could be training and discipline, or a combination of both.
Okay, I feel like there's more to talk about. Can I briefly mention I also design software for emergency housing, and we're talking about Nextdoor earlier, and there's a real data bias in how questions work that trends highly conservative. So I was just talking with a founder who's friends with the founder of Nextdoor, and it's got some design uniqueness to it that will trend to more conservative views becoming louder when that is not the majority of the views in a neighborhood. So I think when using the software, just know that it's good for some things, but not for all.
Thank you, Ava. When you're ready, ma'am. When you're ready.
My name is Lisa O'Reilly. I am from Govans, and I've been here 17 years. I'm also an immigrant like you are. Welcome. One of the things that is lovely about Baltimore is it's here a long time. And so you're going to hear a lot of stories, and I found in my lifetime here that this is a very, very open and generous place. However, it also has a lot of hurt, a lot of trauma. A huge amount of trauma. And when I say trauma, I mean not just something physically happens to me. I'm talking about the sounds you hear, the smells that you smell, the people that you hear. And we're all carrying something. Everyone, whether you wear a uniform or you don't wear a uniform. Unfortunately for you, Commissioner, you're going to be the person who will be asked the question about Freddie Gray. Lord have mercy on him. You're going to be the person that's asked about why your officers didn't do something or why your officers did something. And whether it's because you have the badge and you're paid a lot of money right now to take all that, you're still a human being, and so are all your officers. So I'd like to ask you as a sort of spiritual question as well as, Baltimore needs a lot of trauma healing. And we need a lot of attendance to our hearts, including you. Because over the next 2 years, you're going to take all of our anger onto you. How are you, 2 questions, how are you personally going to be able to hold that? And secondly, I offer you to think about this. Would the police department be interested in also adding to its training a restorative justice package or element? Would it be interested in looking at a Truth and Reconciliation Commission / whatever words we want to put on it? What my real thing is, because our communities are so strong, our knowledge of each other is so strong, and our hates and our grudges are so strong, and our goodness is even better. So I just put that to you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Great points. Stay with me. Stay with me. Good point. Restorative justice training is very important. Not only that, but there's implicit bias training and bias-free policing training to help us overcome biases, but really to help us overcome those biases, because though it's a city of neighborhoods, we all grew up differently, and perhaps in different parts, and me from a different part of the country. So they're inherently in us, but we have to overcome them and treat people fairly, with respect, and in a just way, regardless of whatever way we grew up or the things we were taught. And now It is about teaching our department all the things that you just talked about with restorative justice, which is part of this multidisciplinary approach that already exists in city government, that's already on the ground working. And now making sure the officers are trained in it. I'm certainly open to that. And to the question about me taking on the burden of all of the issues that every member of Baltimore's population may have pointed toward me, I'm willing to take that. As I mentioned to the officers today in roll call, citizens, whether here in Baltimore or anywhere in the world, are not focusing attention on the individual in the uniform. So while my name is Michael, I know it is not focused at Michael. It is focused at the uniform that represents the issue that either caused the problem or didn't do anything about it. So it is not about the officer inside, whether it's Michael or Peter or any other name. It's the uniform that we wear that represents the profession that let you down. And it is all of that. And I ask them and charge them not to ever take it personal. While sometimes citizens might, I charge them not to ever take it personal, because it is not the individual sometimes, but it is all of us collectively who wear the uniform, and those of us who tarnished this uniform and badge. That's the issue. And so the anger is at those who tarnished the uniform. It's just that all of us wear it right now. A healthy understanding of that and retraining the department, I think, is really, really key. That's a lesson I learned in New Orleans that we bring in, that over time you'll see us do that. I don't take it personal. It is my job to take it and absorb it. And I got that. And rather take it out on them, please take it out on me.
Thank you.
Good question.
So we have a couple more questions from the audience. The next question is, what can you do about young men selling drugs in the open at the convenience store in the 4900 block of Liberty Heights Avenue? They sell out of the microwave in the store. We told the police to no avail.
Good question. And the resident actually handed that to me at the beginning, before we got started, and I gave it to Shantae. Good question. I've actually heard that common theme at every single meeting we've been to this week and last week, that they're open air drug markets, and that there is a real issue that citizens are seeing open air drug markets and they're seeing police. They're not seeing the connection of the police enforcement. I can tell you that there is some enforcement, because every morning and every night I look at the information that comes to me that tells me how many people get arrested for drugs, where, and when. Certainly it is not enough, and it will never be everybody who's responsible for it. So some of the work is being done. We have to work on a better way of doing more of it, but clearing those people from those areas. So while some drug arrests are being made, I believe it's not effective in moving the people from the store or wherever it's occurring. And it's not effective in moving the drug dealing to another place or getting rid of it altogether. I can say that I've met with all of our federal partners and the head of the state police when we met with the governor, who committed all their resources, and I know exactly what's happening with all of the investigations, both with DEA, FBI, ATF, our marshals, our state police, working in a concerted effort in unison to attack all of that, but much of that is being done in a covert way, going after mid-level and upper-level drug dealers and ground-level street corner dealers. It's just not having the effect of moving enough of them. And so we have to make sure we build a program, create more free time by being more efficient and effective with some of the things we're doing, so we can build in free time to do more of that. Then we are, I suspect now, having heard this for 2 weeks, that there's a level of training we need to give to our officers on how to approach, how to engage, and how to deal with this open air drug market. And what I want to point out to everyone here, so when you see a large group of individuals and then you see one officer in the car, it is not feasible or practical for the one officer who might be right there to engage a large group of people. First of all, it's not safe. And then it's almost impossible to know which one of them to engage. And if they all started running, which one do you chase? So we're working with all of that. Some of it is capacity building, some of it is training, some of it is weak laws on the corner, but it's always going to be, we need to do more of it and a better job of it.
Thank you. The next question before we call the next five folks. It seems like BPD hasn't done a good job picking all the right people to be police officers. How come everyday people can't help y'all interview people who apply and help make the decision?
That's a great point. That's a great question. I actually experienced that in New Orleans. And what we did in New Orleans was we worked out a deal with the business community to give us HR experts from the largest corporations in the city that joined our recruitment team to help structure the interview panel and the interview process. So they lended us their expertise in designing the way we interview and select people, so we could weed out individuals that we did not have the expertise to know to do. Perhaps that's something that can happen because these HR experts are part of the community, but they have a high level of expertise in identifying characteristics and traits of who belongs in a certain profession and who are predisposed to not be in that profession or who shouldn't be in that profession. And so what we want to make sure is anybody we use, and we're open to suggestions, has a high level of expertise and the skill set necessary to know about personality traits, personality disorders, and all the predictors and indicators that make a person qualified to be a policeman or not qualified to be a policeman. It's not just generally any citizen. It has to be people who have the specific skill set, talent, knowledge, and ability on predispositions, personality traits, disorders about this profession. It has to be specific to this profession. I'm certain, open, and willing to any suggestion to improving this process.
Thank you. The next 5 names are Kay Good, Sonia Merchant, Mike Makel, Jack Amos, and Haiti Rodriguez. When you're ready, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Kay Gooch, and I am here as a representative of the Belvedere Improvement Association. I'm the chair of the Public Safety Committee. Basically, I'm going to ask what many other people have been saying, is how do we recruit quality people? In our neighborhood, we have been not overwhelmed by gun violence, but because of the shortage of staff, we often have long wait times and are stricken with small crimes and petty thefts and automobile break-ins, those kinds of things. So
yes.
What are you going to do differently? How do we get people in our community to become police officers?
Great question and great points. There is a very robust marketing campaign that is actually underway now. And the mayor's already brought in the high-level marketing strategists to put together a recruiting campaign to recruit the best and the brightest from Baltimore to be members of the Baltimore. It's going to be targeted at Baltimore. So I can't reveal too much because it's still being put together. But I've been given a sneak preview, and it's going to be a very high-level marketing strategy campaign for recruitment that we're going to unveil in the very near future. That's number one. But yes, we need a more robust process to bring in more people and to bring them in faster, but it has to be the right people. In partly connected to the previous question and answer, it has to be the right people who have both the will and the aptitude and ability to be good police officers, specifically good Baltimore police officers. And you know what that is. And so we're working on that design right now. But it's about capacity building in a number of areas. We have national testing now that we didn't used to have. Used to have to come to Baltimore to take the test and to do all the things in the application process. Now there's national testing. But it opened the floodgates, and what happened is now the applications have tripled and quadrupled, but now the recruitment division is backlogged because of the lack of staffing. But when we fix that, and I know the judge is sitting there looking, he's waiting to hear what this answer is going to be, but now it's going to be staffing at the police academy, because if we hire them faster, now I have to have the appropriate staffing to train them. Then I have to double the staffing in field training to train them on the street. Then I got to tell the mayor I need 200 more cars. So it's all of that working all the time at the same time. But we are working to bring more people in. But more interestingly, I have to work on doing two things: retaining the good people that we have so that we can slow down the rate of attrition, and creating the great work environment so that people will think that this is a great place to come to, but a great place to stay in. Number one, that's really important, by giving them great working conditions and promotional opportunities and assignments, and so that they feel that this is a good place to be. That is going to be really, really crucial by slowing down this rate of attrition, but at the same time, we have to bring in more people. the most important thing is making sure that we're using our people effectively and efficiently. So assessing what we're doing, what we do well, what we don't do well, and correcting it, and then correcting the people, training, so that we make sure that at least the people we have are being utilized in the best and most proficient and efficient way is what we have to do right now, because we might just find that if we supervise and manage and lead a little better and hold people to standard a little better, we might can become more effective, and we can do some of the things that you need without more people, although I think they will say we need more people. Thank you.
Thank you. Before our next question, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge Councilman Itzy Schleifer and Fire Chief Niles Ford. When you're ready, Sonia.
Again, my name is Sonia Merchant Jones.
Good evening.
I live in Better. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming to Baltimore. Madam Mayor, thank you for everything that you are doing to bring us together. You see all these people out here tonight. I live in Better Waverly. That's an action word. That means that we want to better our community. A better community equals a better city.
Yes.
I've heard so many wonderful things here tonight, and I don't want to repeat. But I will say that I love this city, lived here my whole life, went to high school here, graduated in 1975. And so I just bring all of that up to say that I believe in my heart, with all the challenges we face, and I'm not a stranger to it, that there are more things great that outweigh those challenges. I just believe that. With that said, I think that we need to recognize that Baltimore speaks with more than just one voice. And all those voices are valid, and they need to be heard. And it would be wonderful if we got together to listen. I heard you say something about holistic healing and doing things holistically. I work for the state's attorney's office as a victim witness advocate in juvenile justice. I see things every day that would challenge us, but we never walk away without a solution. And solutions abound in this city. They really do. And I think the possibilities truly are endless. And I just know that because that's what I see. People here in this room, they're here because they care. They're here because they want to help. They're here because they want to be a part of what is good in this city. And it's a whole lot of that. So I guess I'm going to end by asking, would you be open to expanding that advocacy role? I mean, we have Safe Streets and we have ROCA and we have so many things. But when I talk to boys on the corner, because I chair my community's board of directors, I'm one of the chairs, and I just got elected to the State Central Committee. So I talk to people all around this city because I love it here. I've been here, like I said, my whole life. And I just think that we need to start doing things. Guys say to me, said, Miss Sonia, if I had a mother like you, I think I'd be somebody. And I think that they say that to a lot of the mothers in this city that go on the corners where there are no cameras, where nobody's watching. That's what we do. You know we do that, Rich. You know we do that, Mary Pat. When my husband died, Mary Pat stood with me shoulder to shoulder. This is about family. My husband died 2 years ago. She never left my side. And all I can say is that we're family. I know this city. I love this city. I'm so encouraged. I really am. Even in the midst, I am. Poverty and crime is big business, but so is order and prosperity. And we can make it happen.
Thank you.
I want to sit at the table with you. Thank you,
Thank
Sean.
you, Sonia.
I wrote the note.
Thank you. Look, we absolutely welcome working with advocacy groups and great partners in the community. This can't just be on police. This can't just be on police. All of the things you heard me talk about, poverty, crime, and housing, and drugs, and conflict resolution, parenting skills, and jobs and skills, notice I didn't put police in any of that. Those are all the things that make people make a decision to commit crime, and it is their decision. And so we have to fix the thing that makes people cause crime as well, and I appreciate the work that you're doing with that.
A long time ago, I worked for Senator Barbara Mikulski, and she used to carry a little stool. I think I need one.
She still does.
She still does?
Yes.
Someone stole it? Oh, well, I should get my own. I just wanted to say, I wasn't going to come tonight. I love the city, and I echoes my friend Sanja's words. I absolutely love the city. I think we have a lot of strengths. I think, as you can see tonight, we have a lot of people who are committed to making this city strong. But then I thought, I love my council person, Mary Pat Clark. I love my commander, Rich Gibson. And I have absolutely, and they know this, absolutely no problem in picking up the phone or emailing and saying, hey, you know, this and this is going on. What can we do to make it better? But I wanted to come because you're new to the city. And I wanted to say welcome.
Thank you.
And happy anniversary. And I wanted to also emphasize the fact that you are not alone. You have a tremendous job ahead of you, as you've heard tonight, as you will continue to hear. You have tremendous challenges, tremendous opportunities. But as you've also heard tonight, and you will continue to hear, you have a lot of citizens, black, white, brown, Asian, of all socioeconomic backgrounds, who are committed to this city, who have not moved. I have neighbors who have moved for various reasons, who've given up. I don't want to give up. My grandmother settled in the city in the early 60s. She was a founding member of the Mayor's Committee on Hispanic Affairs under William Donald Schaefer. She wanted to make a change. She is 97 years old now. I follow her legacy, and I follow the legacy of so many people who put citizens ahead, like Mary Pat Clark, like our elected officials. And to our mayor and our other elected officials, I say, this is one city. This is one city that, as our citizen from Govan said, it's a city that's hurting. We have a lot of strengths, but it's a city that's hurting. And every time I see on the news that someone has died, I don't want to hear from anyone that dismisses that death and says, it was a drug dealer, you know, it's kind of expected. Because behind that life, behind that death, there was a human being. And I always wonder, you know, you were someone's son, you were someone's brother, someone's father. I know it's a challenge to police, law and order. I want to feel safe. And I work around the city with antennas. I am also 2 years ago, as Rich Gibson knows, because I know that you cannot do it alone. I cannot call Rich and say, what are you doing about XYZ, without playing my part, playing my role. And to those citizen groups out there walking the walks every week, kudos to you. I called in the Guardian Angels.
Ma'am?
And
I'm not sure that folks can hear the timer when it goes off. I'm attempting.
was that it? I thought that was a phone call.
But so I just want to check in. Thank you so much for sharing all your comments. Yeah.
2 seconds, 3 seconds. Just say, I'm coordinating the community blog watch program with the Guardian Angels in my community. And I just want to say, we love the city. We want to love you. You're not alone. It's going to be tough. You're not alone. It's a city that's hurting, and it's a city that, one of the things that I love about what you've said is accountability, responsibility, and listening. So thank you so much, and kudos to everyone who's here tonight.
Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind sticking the microphone back in the podium, thank you. There's a camera angled there so that folks at home can see you all as you speak. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioner. Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
And first off, I would like to ask if at all possible, I just can't convey the concerns that I have and so many others have in 2 minutes. If it would be best for you and for the audience, I can go until I'm last or whatever's best for you. But I just can't convey the concerns and issues that I feel like need to be addressed while we've got the opportunity to in 2 minutes.
Can you remind me of your name, please, sir?
My name is Mike. First name Makel is the last name, M-A-K-E-L.
Is it okay if I call you Mike?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So because we have over 24 people signed up, and we want to make sure that the police commissioner gets to hear from everyone, we are going to limit time to 2 minutes. However, the police commissioner is going to be staying after this evening to hear additional concerns. And so I'm happy to move you to the bottom of the list if that's what you prefer. I'm happy to give you your 2 minutes now as we're running through the list. Or I'm sure the police commissioner would be happy to address your questions or your concerns directly after the session. Okay. What's your preference?
I'll go to the back of the list, and I'll take whatever time is left at that point.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
When you're ready, sir.
Welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you so much.
I realize you could be on the Gulf of Mexico right now fishing with one of those umbrella drinks, but you came to Baltimore, and that means a lot to everyone in this room. I am so encouraged. I'm more encouraged than I've been in many, many years. I've had the privilege of hearing you at various different forums across the city. I want to say that your opening statement is getting better and better, and I figured by tomorrow night, you're going to have it down. I represent all neighborhoods. I'm here on behalf of Carroll Independent Fuel. We have 70 gasoline stations across this city. Some are in good neighborhoods or better neighborhoods. Some are in neighborhoods that are challenging. And we face a lot of obstacles. We face issues with crime, and we work closely with the police. We're working closely with council members. I want to know if you're committed to working with businesses in this city. I don't think the solution in this city is to close down businesses, and we have to work together, and we're ready to be good neighbors. And I just want to hear whether or not you're committed to working with businesses that are willing to work with the police and work with the community.
Thank you for that. And I will do my best not to let you down with that opening statement. But thank you. And yes, I am committed to working with businesses, individuals, families, organizations, neighborhood groups, advocacy groups, youth groups, senior groups. I'm committed to working with everybody. It's one of the things that actually worked very well in New Orleans. The collaborative effort of a police department, a business community dealing with small and large businesses to deal with a number of things. Policies on how we deal with crimes, which we have to work on, how we approach issues that are on private property versus crimes that are happening on public right-of-ways. And perhaps there's some training that needs to be done to improve our confidence and our competence on how to approach those individuals who might be selling drugs and loitering and doing all the things that are on private property, or people that might not be doing that but are just there. So they kind of violate, maybe they're not violating, how we make that approach engage, whether it's in enforcement capacity or a non-enforcement capacity, but really just clears up the problem. How to teach our people how to do that is what we need to work on. That's one thing. But yeah, I'm committed to working with all businesses to find sustainable solutions to the problems that exist now, to the problems that will exist later. And whatever way we can come together to solve that problem, we, our police department, me, the commissioner, I am certainly committed to working with you.
I'm going to ask you to ask your follow-up question at the end, just so that we can get to as many folks as possible. Thank you. One question submitted by the audience before we call our next 5 folks. How can city police work with schools to be safer?
Very good. We've been in a school every night this week, every night last week. And there has to be a relationship between the schools and our police department and our city government. And so what we want to do is make sure people who work in schools, the faculty and staff, have the best training on what to do for various scenarios so that at least they know what to do when things happen. For that, we are available to provide some of that training, but we want to make sure we provide it holistically so everybody across the school system has a clear understanding of what faculty should do when things happen. Now, there are two aspects to that. What to do when things happen, and then what to do when police get there. Until we get there, there has to be some interaction between the faculty and the security in the school and the protocols that they have to make themselves and the students safe. Then there's another level of response, what to do when police get there, when there's an incident that requires a police response, whether it's the officers from a district, whether it's a SWAT team, or whatever that might be, a mass casualty incident or an active shooter scenario. So we want to make sure that everybody within the school has the training, but it's a concerted effort and a coordinated effort on what to do before we get there, what to do when we get there. And that's a collaborative effort. I'm happy to have a conversation with the schools to make sure that we're all on the same page on what schools should do, what we should do, and we all understand how that works.
Thank you. The next 5 names are Katie Blaha, John Boatwright, Rodney Barris, Stephanie Moody, Xavier Jones.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you directly. Thank you for being here and welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you.
I'm a child psychologist, and I live in Bel Air, Edison, and I previously lived in Massachusetts, where I helped lead trainings, crisis intervention trainings with police officers in Massachusetts that were focused on effective strategies for negotiating interactions with youth. And I've heard a lot of really wonderful comments already about how Baltimore is an incredible city with a lot of wonderful things about it. And it's also a city that's hurting. And I really appreciate the comments about crime being an expression of suffering, being an expression of a lot of systemic oppression, a lack of opportunity, poverty, a struggling education system. And so one of the things that is a through line in the trainings that I've done with officers has been to interpret child behavior as not oppositionality, as not defiance, but oftentimes an expression of fear. And that's consistent with statistics that show that of the people incarcerated who have mental illness, most of those people don't have oppositional and defiant disorder or conduct disorder. They have anxiety disorders or mood disorders or ADHD. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how you might support your officers in understanding how to recognize that someone might be having a mental health struggle, and that the way an officer interacts with that person needs to be informed by an understanding of mental illness and also trauma.
Very good.
Thank you.
So what you described is called crisis intervention training.
Exactly.
And we had it in New Orleans, and I believe we have it here. We need to make sure, not that it's just robust, that it's perfected. And crisis intervention training teaches us how to assess a person that perhaps is suffering from crisis, traumatic crisis, or some level of psychosis, or some episode that's a manifestation of a mental issue. Not necessarily, although it's manifested in a criminal act sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. And so our response should be appropriate to make sure that we're responding so that we can assess, deal with the person in a way that's hopefully non-engaging and non-use of force. So that's what crisis intervention is, to teach us how to make those approaches through talking and asking the right questions and the calming techniques that allow us to engage with the person, that reduces and minimizes uses of force, and then brings them to the appropriate place that offers the appropriate resource, not to jail, which is the inappropriate resource. And sometimes we have to figure out, even when a crime is committed, having strong policy and training to affect that protocol on how to do that. But yeah, crisis intervention is here. We want to make sure we perfect it, that everybody within patrol and who's responding to those incidents have an understanding. Now, it's about a 40-hour course, if I'm correct. Right? What you described is a couple of semesters of psychology. And so we have to kind of,
I'm aware.
a couple of semesters, we have to kind of put that in a way that teaches us in a 40-hour course what you learn perhaps in an entire graduate program, how to do that and how to recognize it in an instant.
Well, and if I may, I think there are a lot of wonderful things about CIT. I think the difficulty is that it tends to be a one-off. And if I've learned anything about how people learn, it's not in a one-off professional development course. It's over time with supervision and guidance.
It's over time. And then, but by the same token, we're police officers, and it's a cultural shift from the paramilitary organization and the paramilitary response to a really academic understanding and an academic approach. And so we're shifting the way we have to think, but we have to shift the way we hire people who have the aptitude to even understand how to do that, and then retrain the people who are already here on how to think differently about that. And so, but that's what's happening. That's what the consent decree is all about. It's a mandate to help us make that overhaul, and it's a paradigm shift the way we're thinking. Now, what we want to do is we want to do it not because the consent decree makes us, but because it's the right thing to do.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you very much.
Sir, can you remind us of your name and your neighborhood, please?
Yes, Rodney C. Burris. I live in the Northern District, and neighborhood is Govins. So, first of all, we welcome you to Baltimore.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I just have a quick little bit of good news to share within my 2 minutes.
Yes, sir.
not too long ago, I got to sit in Major Gibson's office. He felt like having somebody talk his head off, ask him 1,000 questions from a neighborhood's perspective about life in Baltimore, and he shared something with me that I did not know. This may be something that was common, but is novel to me, and I wanted to just share real quick. He leads his team to focus in on statistically what may be the next victim in a particular area on a particular day during a particular time of day. And then he deploys additional resources, men in those officers in those areas, identify the victim, walk with them, give them rides, kind of play with kids in the area, just kind of be a presence nearby. And they have seen statistical improvements in safety. He showed me some spreadsheet. I just was really impressed with that. It's one thing to look for more people to arrest, right? It's one thing to look for more people to lock up. It's another thing to look for people and to actually embody, protect, and serve, and play with. My son used to play football with a couple of officers in there, and I didn't know maybe that was what was going on. I didn't even know. So I just appreciated that. He didn't know I was going to say this. I wanted to kind of take the opportunity to give something nice in a session like this. Welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay with me, and I hope I don't embarrass my mayor when I say this. But mayor asked me one time, he said, "Tell me what you think the problem is." I said, "Well, there are a number of problems, but I tell you what's readily observable is there's a communications problem." Remember that? It's a communications problem. It is not how you do a thing well; it's how many people know you do a thing well.
Correct.
And if you don't know that he's doing something good, most people probably don't either.
Correct.
And so we have to do a better job of making sure we know that we're performing well, and when we do, we want to make sure others know. Now, when we're doing not so well, please let us know, so we can correct, so we can self-correct and not be made to correct.
Yes.
Let us know.
Absolutely.
We're open to that, but I want to make sure that we not only, because oftentimes in sessions like this, it's about, you heard me talk about the term consequences
Yes.
and discipline. Well, let's talk about reward.
Correct. Yeah.
Let's talk about reward. So we want to hold people accountable, but we also want to reward good behavior and good performance. And thank you for that.
When you're ready, sir, remind us of your name and your neighborhood, please.
Yes, my name is Xavier Jones, and
Good evening.
I'm from the Central District.
Yes, sir.
I'm a youth leader of Baltimore City through my program, which is Youth Empowerment of Society. And my question is, how will you better train your officers during a threat to shoot the wound and not to kill? Because I believe this is a real issue that is not properly dealt with or looked at, because no matter what someone does, alternative actions should always be a possibility first.
Good question. Good question. So I'm going to start with the term shoot to kill. First of all, that's a slang. That's a slang.
My apologies.
But that's okay. It's all over the country. We're not. It is not about us being trained on shoot to kill versus shoot to wound. We're trained to use as least amount of force as possible. The only time we want to use deadly force or force with a firearm is when we're being met with deadly force, or when another citizen is being met with deadly force. But to the extent that we could not use that, we want to use every level of force beneath that, starting at the least level. But sometimes the decision has to be made in an instant. And sometimes there's only a fraction of a second to make that decision. So nowhere in America are police trained to shoot to kill. It is all about minimizing the threat that's in front of us. And if the threat is a deadly force threat, then that's what we're doing. And the shoot to wound concept is really a bad thing. And I want to walk you through this just for a second. If I attempted to shoot you in the foot or the leg and I miss, I'm going to hit and kill somebody else. And that's not the training. Nowhere in the world is that the training. It's really the training to use deadly force only to eliminate the threat that's coming against us, which should be deadly force, and only in that instance. And so shoot to wound is something that no one in the world teaches, because there's no way to try to shoot a person in the arm or the leg, especially when people are moving. And I'm moving, you're moving, it's late, it's dark, it's impossible to do. And so the most obvious part of the individual that we can think about or see to minimize the threat is what the issue is. And so there is no training to shoot to wound. There is no training to shoot to kill. It's only about reducing the threat that's in front of us and doing what's necessary to stop a deadly force against us or against another citizen. And we're trained to do that and that only, but using minimum force as much as possible. And so we start with simple things like just talking and then escalating from there. But there are times when it's a fraction of a second when you have to make that decision. And only then when it's deadly force do we use deadly force or train to use deadly force.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sir, when you're ready, your name, please.
My name is Craig Newton, and I live at the 2900 block of Woodland Avenue. Now, it was interesting what the young fellow was just talking about shooting to kill and wounding and all that kind of stuff, and you have to protect yourself in those situations. But it would seem to me that a lot of situations could be handled with a tranquilizer gun or the taser gun. So just before you eventually shoot this person, you should first try some other method of getting him to give in or to throw down his weapon. Why is it that you don't use tasers on people as you approach them who may have a weapon?
That's a good comment, and I believe that there are many people who actually would have that same very question. Just like I explained to the young man before you, there are times in every use of force, we want to use minimum force or no force. If we could just do it with just talking, we'd rather do it with just talking. But there are times when we're faced with scenarios where it is a fraction of a second to make a split decision on whether to do it. And when we're faced with deadly force that could kill us or that could kill someone else, that's the level of force we are using against another citizen. And only then that's what we're trained to do, and only in that training are we using deadly force against another person.
Okay, so in other words, when you go out on a call, you do not have the stun guns, you do not have tranquilizer guns to use in the event that the situation would allow you and give you that time to do that.
Well, we don't have tranquilizers.
Well, why not?
That's tranquilizers are used to put animals to sleep. We don't use that on humans.
Human beings are animals. We're nothing but animals.
No, we don't use tranquilizers.
Thank you, Mr. Newton.
We don't use tranquilizers.
Okay. Well, what about the taser gun?
So we have to. So police departments have tasers. Yes, we have tasers. And when we deploy tasers, it is when that level of force requires a taser. And there are times when that level of force requires a taser. There are times when there's a split-second decision when either we're being fired upon or another citizen is being fired upon, and it requires the use of deadly force. And we're trained only to do it in those scenarios.
Right. But I think the community, if they see or hear of a situation, can determine whether or not you had enough time to do that. And a lot of the situations that occur, you have time, but you exhausted your time to the point where you had to shoot him, okay?
Yes, sir.
You shouldn't have to do that.
But there are after-action assessments to go back and review that to make the appropriate decision for either retraining or discipline, if we have to, on whether the correct decision was made. But once again, we want to use no force and only use the level of force that's being used against us or against another citizen. And so we're here to protect us, but we're here to protect the other citizens. When those situations arise where that level of deadly force is against us or another citizen is when we're authorized and should use deadly force, only to neutralize a deadly force threat. But sometimes you only have a fraction of a second to make that decision.
Thank you, Mr. Newton. Our next 5 names are Joe Brown, Danielle Hill, Lydell Hills, Lisa Mullock, Willard Standy.
Welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you.
I'd like you to say more to us in as much specificity as possible, to say what you plan to do to build an active, robust culture of peace, both within the department and also in our city.
Good point. Changing the culture of the police department is my assignment. Certainly, changing the culture of how citizens think toward peace in the community will be all of our assignment. That's not just on me or our police department, because that's a cultural thing, that's a sociological thing, a criminological thing, a theological thing, a psychological thing, and all the other ologies. It is all of us working together to do that, but it will be both political and legislative to make sure that there are strong consequences that are fair and just to deter people from making bad decisions. And so it is all of us doing that. Certainly, I'm charged with reforming a police department to have culture change in the department. It's going to be by creating the most dynamic team of high-level, high-performing, high-thinking leaders that can both supervise, manage, and lead at the same time all the time. And those who can't do it won't do it. I have to find those people. Some of them exist here, some of them I'll bring from around the country. But that dynamic team who can buy into this vision and who have both will and capacity and aptitude and attitude to be able to manage, supervise, and lead all the time at the same time will do that. That's how we get buy-in, but that's how we're going to create this machine of systems of accountability that lets us know when things are right, wrong, and what to do about those who didn't do the right thing. That's a culture change, but that will take time, but that's building the right team of having the people who want to do that, and I believe that the members of the BPD want that and want to do that. How we do that in society and in the community will be all of us. It's going to be with how we shape our children's thinking. It's going to be how we shape each other's thinking, the conversations we have. I said this at a meeting last night. We're really going to have to really now, because we're reforming the police department, but now we have to make sure we're not coaching and teaching our children to have these negative perceptions of police. So we're going to do our part. And it will take a while, and I commit to you we're going to do it. But now we have to have children, when we go to try to engage, that they're not rejecting us because they've been told not to trust us and not to like us. So we have to reshape all of that too. But that's not just the police department's job. That's everybody's job. And so I need your commitment, like I'm giving you mine, to change that. And we're going to make sure we reform our department to build and give you the department you deserve, pay for, and expect.
Thank you, Joe. PC?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Hill. I'm from the Woodbourne McCabe neighborhood. Now, I'm a transplant here. I've been living here for about 2.5 years, and I do understand what they're trying to do with the York Road Woodbourne corridor. That area, just by me driving by, and they do have police officers in the street on York Road, like that 4-block radius. My only concern is why they are in the police cars and not on foot. Foot details on the corners, because for me, I believe that that's a more deterrent than being in the police cars. And plenty times when I drove by or walked by, because I'm from New York, so I like to walk, I walk by and see police officers, and I'm like, wow, I'm ready to knock on their windows and say, are you paying attention to what's going on these four corners? That's, my concern. I don't understand why they have to be in the police cars and not on foot patrol. And the other thing is, I would like for you to add on your 2 words about transparency and accountability is enforcement. Because, and that has to go from the top down, all agencies, because you have people, perpetrators, a lot of them don't own these homes that they live in. It should be some type of connection with Baltimore City Housing, landlords. Everybody needs to be held accountable. Everyone, from all agencies, to work together, because this is the only way this city is going to grow and improve.
Great points, 2 great points. Yes, that's been brought to my attention every single night last week and every single night this week. Citizens and residents from every district talked about what they see when they see the police sitting in the cars and want more foot patrols. That's a central core theme I've heard every night. I can't speak to what happened before I got here. I've already charged the deputy commissioner and the command staff to address that, because the reasons they did that, and everybody had a different reason, is not getting the effect we want. So what we want are foot patrols. What we want is a great community policing philosophy that has great initiatives. So though community policing is not a program, it's a philosophy, it has great initiatives like a foot patrol, which is a deterrent when the officers are on foot doing the right thing. Walking is just one thing. Anybody can take a walk. But I think there's a level of engagement we have to have, and there's a way to go about doing that. That's a training mechanism. There may be some flaws in there that we have to correct and perfect about what to do when we're out of the cars, how to make an approach, how to engage in a non-enforcement way, how to engage in an enforcement way and to know the difference, whether it's on private property or out on the sidewalk or in the street. All of that requires training for everybody over and over again so we get it. And then we change the culture, and then you'll see us doing it. Now, I've already addressed the sitting in the cars. And I can't speak to what was going on last week or the week before, but what I can tell you is that I don't want them doing that. I want them engaged. But right now, since it's been brought to my attention, I need to know why it was done. But let's now go do something else. Let's do the thing that everybody wants. Now, when we're not in the cars and we're walking, when we're doing that, we are not responding to the thousands upon tens of thousands of 911 calls that are coming. Well, neither were the cars that were sitting there just sitting there. But when we're there are some things that we aren't doing or can't do because we're on foot and out of the car. So it's a delicate balance of finding the time, reducing the burdens, being more efficient with what we already have, being more effective with what we already have so that we can build free time to create a smart deployment for community policing and engagement with a walking assignment. And so that's on the way. We've already started to address it. It's not yet going to be perfected, but I assure you we've already started it.
And I'm pretty sure once you get more staffing,
yes,
it will get, better, because you can have details that you just put details out in the street that is just for patrol while you still have people that's in the vehicles.
Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
More people will help, but if we had time to sit in the car, we have time to walk. So the time is there. We just have to be more effective on what we're doing. All right?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Lydell, just one moment if you don't mind. So I want to be transparent and check in with everyone. I want to share with you that we've got 13 more folks who have signed up to ask a question, and it's 8:32 p.m. So I'm going to really ask folks to be mindful and listen out for the timer so that I don't have to interrupt you. Thank you. When you're ready, Lydell.
All right. Hello. I'm usually pretty brief. My name is Lydell. I'm living currently in Charles Village. And so the question that I have for you today is about the Johns Hopkins police force. I've recently heard about. I'm kind of just tuning into it, so I'm like coming to you to also hear more information about it. But what I've recently heard is how this private police force may be instituted in the community, and from what I've understood, there's been a community meeting and a voting that's voted no against having that new private police force coming in. And so I'm just coming to you just to ask, I hear that police force may be under the authority of like the mayor's office or the governor. And so I just want to hear more about like what was the perceived need for this private police force in addition to like the campus security and the other officers there?
Great question. I can't speak to the need. That's going to be something to be addressed by Johns Hopkins and the leadership at Johns Hopkins. What I can tell you is that their proposal is to have a police force for the university. Now, where I came from in New Orleans, there were 7 universities, 4 private, 3 public. All of them had full-service police departments that carried weapons and were full service. Now, what I did was gave them very limited scope of authority, very limited scope of jurisdiction, and in a coordinated way, they handle campus issues, things that happen outside the campus, the city police handled, and when there were certain violent acts that, like robbery, sexual assaults, or any other kinds of violent offense, even on or off campus, the city police department handled it. That's what I did in New Orleans. If this should pass legislatively, and I don't know what the community vote was or what the community had to say about it, that's in the general surrounding area. But if this were to happen, There has to be limited scope of authority, limited jurisdiction on where they can go and what they can do, and in a coordinated way, because we're in the city, the university sits within the city, we're under a consent decree with very different policies, very different protocols, perhaps very different practices. So has to be some coordinated training to make sure their personnel are aware of what we are expected to do, but the jurisdiction and authority is very limited to the campus, if it should pass, and it has to have some level of oversight and a coordinated effort from me, the commissioner, and coordinated with the commander of the district where the university is housed, whether it's the hospital or the main campus. And so I don't know if or when that will happen, but hypothetically, if it were to happen, that's kind of how I envision overseeing it, making sure they had limited scope of authority, limited jurisdiction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, your name?
Cornelia Scott, I'm speaking on behalf of Ms. Mullock.
Okay.
Very good. Greetings,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Commissioner. I stand here as a representative of Family Survivor Network, and we really work with a partnership of survivor organizations, including the Kevin L. Lewis Foundation, the Trill Foundation, Where There's Three, No Other Mother, Granting Access to Renew Yourself, India's Purple Ribbon, Moms Demand Action, Mothers on the Move, Save Moms, Children of Murdered Parents, and No One Left Unhelped. In each of those contexts, you have individuals who've gathered really to bring capacity to their concerns about violence, particularly deadly violence. And there's a voice, a strand of discussion that is of concern to them, and I bring to you. And that concern is over the low-level marijuana, low-level, at least your policy relative to low-level marijuana possession and young people, and how your police department will handle its policy, what your policy will be with regard to those.
Oh, good question. So on my first day, I met with the state's attorney, and we had a very productive conversation in her office. And we talked about that because I learned about that Friday before I became the commissioner. I said, man, what have I gotten myself into? Okay, all right. No problem. We had a very productive conversation. What this was not a change in the law. This was purely a policy change from the state's attorney's office and a policy decision not to prosecute these cases. The law still says it's illegal. Now, we've decriminalized it. When I say we, I mean the state of Maryland, because I'm here now. We've decriminalized it over time, and the department's policy has been to minimize simple possession of marijuana arrests. So much so you can clearly see the downward trend over time since it was decriminalized, and the policy change within the department. So in our prioritization, we want to make sure we're focused on violent crime and violent offenders. And so although it is illegal, although it's still against the law, although there's a policy change in the state's attorney's office, our policy is still aligned with the law. We don't want to do anything to make our officers in violation of their own policy or in violation of the law, because then we'll be having the forum accusing the police officers of violating the law and the policy. What we want to do is prioritize. We agreed in her office to communicate to one another to go forward on policy changes that she makes that affects us, policy changes from us that affect her, go forward together with a plan of action on how to accomplish a mission that we can either legislatively or in-house adjust our policy to fit the objective as long as it doesn't change, conflict with the law. That's what we agreed to. And so now we have to work on a set of protocols that allows us to focus on violent offenders, violent offenses, not necessarily focus on low-level crimes like simple possession of marijuana. Although at times, we will find that there are violent offenders who very well may find themselves in possession of marijuana. The circumstances will dictate how we pursue and go after those things. But the prioritization is violent offenses, violent offenses. Violent offenses, offenders. All right, thank you.
Our next 5 names are Shael Seltzer, Daniel Burgess, Steve Pappas, Kathleen McCarthy, and Christian Greer.
Hi, my name is Shael Seltzer.
I'm currently living in Mount Washington, and in a week and a half, I don't know which neighborhood I'll be living in. Welcome.
Thank you.
I ride a public transit system, and it's gotten harder and harder, and the bus stops are farther and farther. In January, 2 people were murdered. I don't think it's enough to just say shot at bus stops. There was a woman who left, got off a bus stop, got off the bus, and some teenagers assaulted her, sexually assaulted her this month. I wish you that you please watch what we watch. We watch the news every night, and we look at, for me anyways, I look at the Baltimore, the blotter with all the homicides, and I see all the kids, and as somebody on the bus, I don't know if I'm going to get home safe. And if you could please just remind us, it's protect and serve. What is the actual oath?
It is actually serve and protect.
Serve and protect.
It is to serve and protect.
Yes.
And that is what we're charged to do, to
Yes.
serve and to protect.
Right. So, I don't know about you, but wouldn't at least one of the top priorities be to protect the law-abiding citizens who just want to get home safe? And you can look at all the college campuses. I moved away and I'm coming back, and I'm in the process of being able to purchase a home and improving my life and such. And I see these campuses that all the schools now have their own bus services, and I want that, just like they pick up a phone and they want help to get home, that every citizen in Baltimore should have that. And you already have there's already lights, with cameras and such. There should be, places where you can run and get a phone, because it's not just from the bus, but just be able to grab something so that somebody knows you're there and you need help, and they can save people's lives.
Thank you, Ms. Seltzer.
That is a priority.
And I have so much more to talk with you after.
Yep.
And I've been a victim of crime, and the word trauma has already come up. So could you please say trauma, and we'll talk about it?
Trauma. We'll talk about it.
Thank you.
We will talk about it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Kathleen McCarthy. I'm with the Tuxedo Park neighborhood.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for being here and joining our community. Sorry. My question tonight kind of circles back to something Ava was talking about with the Nextdoor software. If you could talk a little bit about the use of predictive analysis in policing. I know it's something that New Orleans was using and that Baltimore is looking to use. I believe a contract was signed last year, and how you will work to ensure transparency, and that biases that are already built into the system will be accounted for and addressed.
Good question. There is a concept called predictive analysis or predictive policing. There are softwares out there that attempt to, there are algorithms that talk about crime, where it happens, when it happens. So it attempts to predict when and where crime could happen so that we could deploy in advance to prevent it, displace it, and perhaps apprehend people who commit it. And so in New Orleans, there was a software that the city was using and that an analyst was using, not the police department. but the contract expired. We dealt with the issues. We decided as a city and as a department we did not want to do that. However, we did hire crime analysts, which we want to make sure we have a very robust crime analyst and analytical department here to help us understand relationships between people and other people, people and things, people and places, people and activity, so that we know very strategically who the small subset of individuals who are committing the most crime and havoc in the community, and then how to create a strategic plan to target those individuals and not have a cast net approach of just trying to catch everybody and figuring out who the bad actors were. So it's very scientific and it's very, very specific. And to the extent that we have any predictive analysis, certainly we'll be transparent to make sure that we're not predisposing people who are not yet committing crimes and predisposing deployments to people who have not yet committed crimes, but only giving us relationships between people so we know how people are connected to crimes, people are connected to previous crimes, places, things, guns, phones, jails, all of those things. We want to make sure we have smart deployment strategies that are protective of the citizens, protective of the officers, but also fair, just, and constitutional as well. And certainly, transparency is a big part of what we want to do with our culture change. It's a mandate in our consent decree, but it's the right thing to do, to make sure, number one, that you're safe, but that you feel safe. And in feeling safe is about knowing, what's happening within your police department, and you can have answers to questions in real time. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Burgess, and I currently live in Parkville, but I've been in Maryland my entire life. For the sake of time, I'd like to ask to be put on the back of the list. I don't have a question. I do have a form of solution, and I would like to talk to you before the evening.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. The next 5 names on the list are Louise Phipps Pfeffer. I'm sorry, I think I might have messed up your last name. William Lassane. Bear with me for one moment if you don't mind. I just want to check in with Mr. Cornelius Scott. I believe that you've already spoken on behalf of someone. Is that correct? Thank you so much. Mike Makel. And then Daniel Burgess. Now, just to keep in mind, folks, as we get closer to 9 o'clock, we do want to hear again from the police commissioner so that he can share back with you what he's heard from you all tonight and what the next steps look like. So as we get closer to that time, we may be lining up folks after the session is over to continue your conversations with the acting police commissioner. Thank you. Ma'am, when you're ready.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Commissioner, yes. Welcome.
Thank you.
We are a warm people and hope you have experienced a warm welcome.
It has. Great.
Awesome. Your job is one that we want to help you with. I'm Louise Phipps-Senft. I live in Roland Park, and I'm an attorney mediator and a high-stakes negotiation trainer. And I've had the privilege of working with 2 previous police commissioners and the trainer for Safe Streets. With that, my real interest is in how you're thinking about your job. And I'm wondering if you're thinking around collaborating with other police commissioners and what it is that they've found in a safe environment where you can talk with them that's not with all of the media around you about what it is that might really help us work with you and you work with us to bring Baltimore to become the city that it has been and has the ability and capability of being. This collaboration with others who are in your same position in other major cities. Can you share with us your thinking about that?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I haven't had much time to think about the job. I'm here doing it. I've actually already done it.
Yeah.
For 4.5 years. New Orleans was in a place where Baltimore is now. I became the chief of the department in year 2 of a consent decree. At the time, we were the murder capital of the nation. We had been through a hiring freeze with some financial crisis and lost 400 officers, 1/4 of the department. So right before I started, we were staffed at 1,550, and when I took the department, it was at 11, a little bit above 1,100, and I worked to rebuild it back to about 1,250 before I left a few weeks ago. So I'm clearly already doing the same job I was doing when I left. I just had a week off to drive to Baltimore. It is literally almost, people want the same things. 1,200 miles apart, and people want the same things. They want a safe neighborhood, they want good schools, they want jobs and opportunities, they want to fellowship with their neighbors and be able to take a walk and not get robbed and get mugged and have good schools. People want the same things. And so literally, I kind of say that in a joking way that I have not really been thinking about it, because I've been on the ground doing it all day, every day, and then meeting all night, every night. But the beauty of this opportunity for me is that the chiefs in America are really supporting me. So I belong to a number of organizations, the Police Executive Research Forum, Major City Chiefs, which has thousands upon thousands of chiefs and memberships. The Major City Chiefs Association, which is the 70 biggest cities in America. And before this, I was actually on the board of directors representing the central part of the country. 19 departments, I was a representative. So all of the chiefs in America, I was on the International Association Chiefs of Police, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. I'm in all these memberships, and all of the chiefs are supporting me because they all understand what Baltimore needs right now. And so I get calls every night, and they know to call late at night, that we can talk and I can bounce ideas off of the brightest minds in America. And so I am thinking about it, although I kind of jokingly said that about being really busy. And so, yeah, there are things that are working in other jurisdictions. Though they may not be in the consent decree, they have actual best practice that are working in proven strategies. And we guide and help each other. And for some of the newer chiefs, like the chief in New Orleans who just got, I'm on the phone with him sometime, guiding him through some things that he's not familiar with, and other new chiefs around the country. So it's really a network of chiefs working together in a number of organizations. And while they may have good solutions that work there, we can bring it here, tweak it to make it fit our needs if it's a best practice. But at the same time, while we want to adopt best practices, and the consent decree will bring best practices, I'm the kind of chief that want to create best practices and make other people come adopt what we created. That's what I want. So I'm always thinking about it. And so while I'm answering your question, and I hope I have, I really want to talk to the commander and the officers. When you ask yourself, does he stay up all night just thinking up stuff for us to do? Absolutely, yes, I do. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Greetings, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. Greetings to the crowd, to the community, to everyone. Greetings, madam. Welcome to you both and your lovely family.
Thank you.
My name is William Lessane. I'm an alumni of Baltimore City Community College, as well as a student at Morgan State University. I represent the 6th District, which we have one of the best councilwomen in the world, Sharon Green Middleton, here with us.
Yes.
I'm just going to say a couple things and I'll get out your way. Have an African pride for you. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So I'm challenging not just myself, but you as well, sir, that we can do this work together. I'm a social work and human services major. So I pledge to do anything and everything that I can to help you, as well as every agency and every community, to get this work done efficiently, effectively, not just be busy for busy's sake, but be busy being productive. Also, I would say that what I've learned and what I've seen from my time, I'm a Baltimore City resident, born and raised here in Baltimore, in West Baltimore primarily, it really takes a village to raise a child. So we got to start doing some things from the home setting. When we're putting our families and our communities out here in society, we got to do some things in the home first. So, I'm millennial, but I kind of like some old school things. So I got that balance. What I will say is that we didn't get in this quandary with one administration, with one mayor, with one police commissioner, with one housing commissioner, with one any person. We got in this thing together. And the only way we're going to get out of this thing is together. So we all have a responsibility to get this work done together. And so I will not put the burden on just you and you all in your department, in this one agency, in this one mayor to do this work. We all have a responsibility and a role to play. So we will be derelict in our duty and just blaming you for any of the problems that persist or exist. Lastly, I'll say thank you so much for being here. I look forward to working with you. Last point, I was trained to not solely be impressed by what a person says, but by what a person does. And so I, as a voter in Baltimore, will hold any of my elected officials or anyone accountable if they're not doing the work, as well as hold myself accountable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I welcome your help. I welcome your support, and I welcome your teamwork and the spirit of teamwork. I welcome that. I look forward to all of us working together with you.
Yes, sir.
You're a great leader. You got a bright future.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So at this point, I'm going to check in again. We're at about 5 minutes to 9. There are a few more folks that have questions. We're going to ask you all to direct your questions to the police commissioner after the session is over. I'm going to call those names now. Kevin Cleary, Mike Makel, Daniel Burgess. So as I reminded folks a couple of minutes ago, the police commissioner does have a few closing remarks that he'd like to share with you all, but we'll be sticking around for you to have a one-on-one conversation with him. Thank you, ma'am, for understanding. So a few things before I turn it over to the acting police commissioner and then to the mayor to close us out. We appreciate you all for coming tonight. And we want to continue to be informed by your questions and your concerns about public safety, in addition to any additional questions that you have for the acting police commissioner. As such, you have evaluation forms. Please take a moment to fill those out. You can turn them into any City Hall employee. Folks are raising their hands to demonstrate who you can turn them into. You can also find me and bring them up to me. We have one more meet and greet. We've been doing this for 8 nights now. We've got one more to do in the Northeastern District over at Mervo, my alumni, or my alma mater rather, tomorrow night. And we welcome as many of you who would like to join us there tomorrow to continue your conversations with the acting police commissioner and or to invite folks who were unable to make it tonight to share their concerns, hopes, and issues with the police commissioner. So with that, I'll turn it over to the acting police commissioner.
Thank you, Shantae. Great job. I want to thank all of you for putting this together. This has been great tonight. It's been great every night. Give yourselves a round of applause. This was very important to me to get to know you and to hear your concerns, so that the way that I start is understanding what is actually important to you. Now I have a pathway to creating the most robust plan to give to our mayor that we will present to you going forward on the strategic plan of reform for the department, which the blueprint has already been set. But, dealing with violent crime, dealing with staffing, dealing with reorganization, dealing with all the things that are going to make us a great 21st century police department. Here are the 7 core items that I heard tonight that are really the central theme for tonight, but have been the central theme for every night, for all 8 nights. Accountability. It is the central theme. I've heard it over and over again. Citizens want accountability, but you know what? The police department wants accountability too. They actually want leadership, consistent, sound, smart, strong, decisive leadership. And I'm here and pray that I can deliver that to them to guide this department and lead this department to be the department you pay for, expect, and deserve. Transparency. Transparency is paramount. Accountability without transparency is not really accountability at all. Because it is not that we do a thing well, it is how many people know we do a thing well. Just like people seem to think they know when we do a thing not so well. We need to make sure that accountability and transparency go hand in hand. Accountability, consequences, and discipline when officers fail to properly follow policies when engaging in different communities. So those systems of accountability include both training and discipline at every level. We've often taught police officers how to be police officers. And I think across America, we've done a fair to good job at teaching police officers how to be police officers. We've not done a good job in America at teaching people how to properly supervise, properly manage, and properly lead Supervision, management, and leadership are three distinct things, but can be three one and the same. And we've often not taught people about systems of accountability, things that are really prominent in the business community, in the academic world, but not necessarily in policing. And so we need to do a much better job on that. We commit to that. Collaboration with residents, community-based organizations. You have my commitment, you have our commitment on a full collaboration effort in every area, whether it's in all the social things that you heard me talk about that cause people to commit crime, and we certainly want to work to make people make better decisions about committing crime. Then on the back end with consequences, making sure we're working to have the best but fair and just strong consequences that deter people from those crimes, and then the reform in the department, both collaboratively with the leadership within and you, the citizens that are helping guide that. Open air drug markets. Certainly we've heard that every single night. It's in every part of the city. What they are, it's not just the open air drug markets, it's a two-part conversation. It's the open air drug markets and what the police are doing when it's happening. And so we commit to making sure that we want our officers being effective. We want to make sure we're highly trained so that we're confident and competent how to approach it, how to deal with it, and that we're strategically working with all of our state, local, and federal partners in a collective effort to target it and to root it out at its core and move it out and get rid of the people that are causing havoc, because there is a correlation between that open air drug market and the high levels of volume of violence that we're seeing in the city. Officer recruitment, very important. I laid out that we're going to be unveiling a high-level recruitment campaign in the very near future, focusing on bringing in the best individuals, but going after the individuals who live in Baltimore, who are best suited to serve and protect because they understand the dynamics of the city that they were born and raised in and love so much. But officer retention is equally as important. Your morale, your well-being, your wellness, and how well you feel about your work and yourselves and your colleagues and the places you work are very important, because we want you to stay and cultivate and develop and grow in this department. And then feeling safe. We want you to feel safe, but we really want you to be safe. We want both. Being safe, feeling safe. Feeling safe is going to be that communication issue, that we communicate to you effectively what's actually going on so we see things as they are and not worse than they are. Seeing them as they are and not worse than they are. Tell us when we're not doing so well, we'll correct. But when we do well, we want to make sure we know. So we actually have the accurate information. So those people are safe, but they actually feel safe. And so those are the 7 core things. This is important to me, and I'll close with the very same thing that I opened. That I am committed here, my wife and I are here for as long as it takes, maybe even forever. I am a part of this department. I'm proud to be your leader. I'm proud to be your leader. They call me commissioner, but you call me commissioner as well. And so we will all work together. My hope is that when my time is done, whenever that is, and I hope to be here for a long time, that I get to sit back and I'll be proud to be able to see you all become the chief and commissioners of this department and move across the country and take over other cities and go help fix other departments, because we self-corrected on our own, because we wanted to. Not because we were made to, and we're going to do it, but because we wanted to. Thank you all very much. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night.
Let's take a moment, you all, please, to acknowledge our Office of Community Engagement. Allie Smith, thank you for being here. Our Office of Neighborhoods that informed everybody and made sure everyone got here. Our Violence Reduction Initiative team, thank you all. Shantae Guy for being our MC for this evening. And another round of applause for our Acting Commissioner, Mr. Harrison, and his wife. Happy anniversary tomorrow night. And to you all, thank you all for taking time to be with us this evening and sharing. Thank you. Good night.